So one day I randomly got the idea that I wanted to try to build Princess Peach's castle from Super Mario 64 in The Sims 4. So what you're gonna see here is a speed build of me building the castle. As you can tell, it's very sped up. I think this entire video is like 15 times speed. This took me probably much longer than it should have, much longer than it would take a lot of people. I really enjoy building in The Sims 4, but I go through phases where I'll like build a ton for like a couple months and then I won't touch the game for like another 6 months. So I was a little rusty when I was getting into this build. I think it took me something crazy like 13 hours to do all of this, which is insane. So with that being said, super sped up video. I did also have to cut some stuff out, even when it was just purely sped up. It was like 34 minutes. So I had to cut it down a little bit. But what you're gonna see here is me working on the floor plan, making a ton of edits, a ton of changes. One thing that was challenging was trying to figure out the scale of the build because, as you can probably realize, Mario from Super Mario 64 and a Sim in The Sims 4 are very different scales. So that was a little challenging to figure out, but here you'll see me putting in a staircase. And once I had like the staircase in, that kind of helped me figure out the scale of how it was. And I think this ended up being like pretty accurate to what I wanted it to be. You can see here, I'm kind of making my way through the lobby, and the beginning part of this video is mostly me just putting in walls, platforms, figuring out the overall floor plan, which took honestly most of the time of doing this. Again, scale had a lot to do with that. But going into this, I kind of knew that there were going to be a lot of challenges doing this speed build. One, I already mentioned, I'm a little bit rusty when it comes to The Sims 4. I'm not the greatest builder and I can be a bit of a perfectionist. That also being said, I don't have a whole lot of experience using mods in The Sims, so I decided to just make this without the use of any mods. I do have a bunch of like packs and stuff, so I use those. It's not just like purely the base game, but I did make this without any mods. The part I'm working on right now, the stairs, oh my god, this was like one of the hardest parts of the entire build. I cut a ton of this part out because I think I spent like probably an hour just trying to figure out this staircase in terms of like, I was using curve walls, but then you can't put stairs on a curve. And then I was trying to use like stairs, but then they were coming out on the wrong side. And then I tried using platforms, and then I used like, ended up with a weird combination of platforms plus stairs, and it ends up working out. But you're seeing me go through just a ton of things that didn't work. So yeah. But that being said, I knew there were like this a few challenges that were going to come into play when I was doing this. Another challenge was, if you look at Princess Peach's castle, it is logistically impossible. So you're going to notice that I'm just building like the main like lobby areas of the castle. I'm not building any of the specific rooms. So like, you're not going to see me building like JRB or Womp's Fortress or anything like that. Those rooms won't fit in the castle. If you tried building them, they extend far outside the reaches of the castle. There's actually a really interesting video on YouTube that Skullux made. I have it linked underneath this video. I recommend checking that one out. It's very interesting to kind of see how it would all fit together. So that was a challenge, obviously, going into this. Another thing is that I only built up through what's known as like Tippy. You can only build up, is that 4 stories? Yeah, 4 stories. So I couldn't go any higher. So there's not like a room for where Bowser in the Sky would be. I had to cut it at 4 stories. So yeah, there's a lot of things Sims wise that create some challenges. There's a lot of constraints, such as stairs can only be placed on 90-degree angles. They can't be built on diagonals. Split leveling also gets kind of weird when you're working with platforms. Some really funky things can happen. There were lots of instances where like I would like raise up a platform and a door on like the complete opposite side of the building would disappear or something. So there's lots of like funky things that can happen with platforms and trying to like split level and stuff. So I had to get a little bit creative with how I went about that. But again, overall, pretty happy with how it came together. What you're gonna notice here is you're like, wait, where did the roof get there? I built part of the roof and then I end up deleting it. So the part that you see, like the lower portion of the roof, you just don't even need to worry about. In just a minute, I'm going to be deleting it. So yeah, at this point, you saw me build most of the lobby. I had a lot of fun building the basement with all like the little tunnels, pathways, and then I kind of have the foundation for upstairs in Tippy. But here you can see I deleted a big part of the roof that I had just done. I realized that I didn't like how it looked with just like 3 stories like straight up and then like the little room for Tippy. So I decided that I wanted to give it a little bit more dimension and I wanted it to be like 2 stories that were like the main castle build, and then the 3rd story gets a little bit smaller, and then Tippy of course being the smallest. So I'm kind of editing that, changing that, and then here you see me putting in the roof for that portion. And I think overall the outside of the castle turned out pretty good. It's of course not like a one-to-one replica of what Peach's castle looks like. Again, logistically impossible, but there's some other things where I just felt like it looked a little bit better the way I did it than like it would have looked had I done it like accurately. At the beginning of the building, you may have saw that like the back corners, I had those weird like triangular shapes, which is accurate to what it actually looks like in the game. But I wanted the corners to have like the little pointy roof things. So I ended up just making them, I think it's hexagons maybe. So yeah, I was working on all of that. I think it came together. The roof looks good. I'm putting the windows. I took some creative liberty here because there's a lot of places that don't have windows, but I thought it looked better with windows. So I added all of that. And then my game crashed. I think all I lost at this point was, I think I saved after I did the roof. So all I had to redo was like the exterior. So I had to redo the exterior paint and then the doors and the windows. So I didn't lose too much, but you know, just Sims things. So yeah, now I'm going into the fun part where I was decorating and putting in the floors and the carpet and the walls and all that kind of stuff. So that was fun. I was really proud of that carpet that you used to get into the wing cap stage. It's 2 rugs actually placed on top of each other, and I think it was like actually ended up looking super accurate to how it does in the game. So I feel like I got kind of lucky with that and thought it looked pretty good. With that being said, here you're going to see me coming into more constraints with The Sims. As I said before, The Sims has limited options, a lot of constraints, and I'm not working with any mods. So for a lot of it, I was just kind of picking what I felt looked closest. But like, for example, like the paint on the walls isn't exactly one-to-one with how it looks in the game. The floor, for the most part, I could find some pretty close matches, but yeah, you'll see some stuff I just kind of had to find what was close and what looked good all together. So yeah, we're going in decorating. I found like those little wall decorations to indicate like the star doors. I thought those worked pretty well. So yeah, you can see at this point, the lobby is pretty, it's come together. And then I realized another weird Sims glitch. The stairs just wouldn't, they were there and now they weren't. For some reason, one of the platforms outside the staircase in the lobby that I'm working on right there, it was interfering with the stairs on the other side that go down into the basement. Why it was doing this on one side and not the other, I have no idea. I ended up like completely deleting it and rebuilding it. And I don't know, it somehow worked out. But that again was another thing that took me like forever to figure out. So I'm just glad we got there in the end. So yeah, now I'm going into the basement. I think this is one of my favorite parts. I'm really happy with how it looks visually in the basement. I think it actually looks like very accurate to how it looks in the game. I feel like the wallpaper is kind of perfect. The floor is really close. I think spatially, like the floor plan worked out really well. So I am very happy with how the basement turned out. One thing you'll notice is in the main room in the basement, and also in the lobby, there's a few platforms that usually have a railing. Maybe this is just my lack of Sims knowledge and experience, but I think if you put a railing, it kept deleting the wall. So if you just have a platform, then you can't paint it. So I either had the railing or had like an ugly gray that didn't match the rest of the walls. So a lot of it, I just kind of had to go without a railing at all, if that makes any sense. So yeah, now we're moving into upstairs. I will show like a walkthrough of everything at the end, but again, this is just a speed build for right now. The upstairs was pretty simple at this point. A lot of like the floor swatches and the wall swatches I already had picked out from like other levels. So at this point, I'm just pretty much matching the floor and the walls to what I had in other areas. And this room is where it gets a little bit funny because obviously there's all the paintings that you enter in upstairs, and obviously we're not going to have exact matches in The Sims 4, so you probably noticed like similarly for like LLL, I used like a garage door that just had like similar colors. So it was kind of funny trying to find like paintings in The Sims that I could use that kind of mimicked what you would see in the game. And then in Tippy, here we are. Again, I kind of cut out a bunch of me building this and then like redid it and deleted it and redid it again. So now we're at a pretty good place with how upstairs looks. I was so sad. I think Tippy looks so cool with like the dark blue walls, and then it gets like darker towards the ceiling, and then you see like stars and everything. So I was sad that I couldn't like perfectly mimic that. And this again is where it also looks a little bit different because usually there would be a staircase above that door right there leading into Bowser in the Sky, which we ran out of space for. So that's Tippy pretty much done. And then I decided that it would be really fun to do the BBH courtyard. This ends up being one of my favorite parts of the build. I just think it ends up looking really cute. I'm really glad I added this. Like I said, I couldn't add most of like the individual rooms like Womps or BOB, like the rooms themselves aren't there. So I was glad that I could add the BBH courtyard. I think it adds a lot to it and it just ends up being really cute. So yeah, you can see me working on this. And again, it's just like a little bit of creative liberties that I took here. I made some changes just so that I felt like it looked good. I think I found a pretty good balance of it looking accurate to what the actual game looks like and working in The Sims. So pretty much the whole build was kind of just like going back and forth trying to figure out how I could balance that best, and I think I ended up at a pretty good place. We are getting near the end of the speed build now. I'm just adding some final touches, the trees. Oh my gosh, this is one of my favorite parts. There's these cute little ghost gnomes that they have in The Sims. So when I saw these, I was like freaking out. I was like, oh my god, perfect. So I added those and they're super cute and adorable and I love them. And then lastly, I was like, you can't have the castle without the moat. And then at one point I realized that spot on the left side of the castle where there's no moat, it's because the basement and the pool were hitting one another. So I couldn't put the pool because the basement was there. So I ended up like making that hallway, I think a little bit smaller, and then I put an extra wall. So this is what we ended up with. And I think it looks really good. This is it from the outside. Ignore the door on the side of the wall. It just has to be there. But yeah, I'm gonna kind of walk you through the floor plan of it. This is what it looks like top to bottom with all the rooms. I think it turned out really good. So now we can walk through it a little bit. Starting with the lobby, of course, iconic first room that you enter when you enter the castle. I think the floors look really good. I'm a little iffy on the clouds. I felt like they had to be there, but of course, limited options. And then you'll see like the walls are like kind of awkwardly split between colors. It ends up in the actual video game, it goes like from lighter to darker, and of course you can't like ombre it, but I kind of made it work. And then there's of course the walkway back to BBH, which I already mentioned is one of my favorite parts of the build. I think it looks super cute. And then you can see these staircases from hell that we finally figured out. You go down to the basement. I think this room looks really good also. As I mentioned before, I'm really happy with how the basement altogether turned out. I think it looks like very accurate to how it actually looks in the game. I've got like the cute little lanterns where like the fire would be. And the floor plan worked out really well in terms of like, it feels accurate to when you're actually in the game. So that if we go back to the lobby and we see the stairs that take us upstairs, those staircases also were evil, but we figured them out. And then we just have this upstairs area with all of our little paintings that bring you to the different stages, and that brings us to Tippy with the little clock for TTC, which I thought was cute. And then we have the two little rooms off to the side. That would be the Cloud Stage and Rainbow Ride. And the last thing we have here are just some videos that show you what it looks like in the spaces a little bit more. As I mentioned, I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. I am by no means the best builder in The Sims 4, but I had a lot of fun with this. I play a lot of Mario and I like building in The Sims, so it was kind of like a perfect combination of a few hobbies that I have. I hope you enjoyed it. I really appreciate if you watched this far. If you want more Super Mario 64 content, you can check me out on Twitch. And that's all I have. Bye, guys.